Yeah.
I believe that we have demonized losing when losing is the best. Like for me, it was school was telling me I was going to be a failure. So you have grown-ups left and right, friends, parents, and teachers. You will be a garbage. I mean, the favorite thing back in the 80s, you're going to be a garbage man. Big shout out to the garbage men and women, first of all. But that was the cliche thing in 84 to 87. Like, I can't wait to be, like, I'm going to be garbage. Like they just really, it was only college. It was only grades. So that, and then I competed 24/7. I was always competing. And when you compete all the time, you're losing a lot. And I cried. I cried from 6 to 12 every time I lost in anything. Video games, checkers, Uno, football, because I hated the feeling. But the layers of skin that I have, you know, and that makes sense to me about you. You can't be out there at the level we're out there if you don't have that stomach. You won't do it. You won't put yourself, we all now can. Everybody can put themselves out there. People won't do it if they don't have that layer of skin. And I agree with you, like, and it's a tough challenge, but we have to get kids to like get comfortable with losing.
Yeah, get comfortable with discomfort. Even if it's not losing yet, just getting comfortable with discomfort.
And we've really gone the other way, especially if there's money. If the family has a couple bucks, it's been completely eliminated.
Yeah.
Parents are going to school fighting for their kids. Like, my kid should have got an A. Like, we're doing too much. And then they're 22 and they have to live life. And they go into the workplace and they're like, I should be the VP of this company, Gary. I'm like, you've been here 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, start your own company. You know
Have
what I mean?
have you found clever ways with your daughter to be able to do things like that? Like, have you found?
Yes, I'm hacking all the time with my two kids.
Yeah, how do you encourage losing?
Competition.
How do you do that with kids? Give me because I'm not a parent yet.
Beat them.
Oh.
Beat them in everything.
My dad used to do that to me.
I wish AJ was here. Like, AJ, my mom used to get so mad at me because we were siblings, not it's your child, and I'm 11 years older. So we're playing one-on-one basketball. I'm 18, he's 7, and I am beating him for a couple of reasons. 1, I believed it. 2, I didn't want to lose. 3, I always knew when it happened, I'm like, one day he's gonna be 17. And I'm gonna be, 28, and he's gonna beat me. He's gonna be, and like, I needed to get my wins on the board because, I think beating them. I think talking about adversity, explaining non-conformant, leaning in, and so that's how.
Yeah, I like that. And my dad was like that. It was really interesting because I think men and women react differently to that. But as a guy, like, my dad was like that. He would never pass. He would get in front of an open goal, soccer I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Get in front of an open goal. He could pass to me for his son to score and he'd go and score. We'd be playing father and son soccer.
And honestly, I've been thinking a lot because I'm so soft-skilled.
Yeah.
There's so many moms I know that were like, we'll never let, the dad is, I'm thinking about one couple right now where it's like, I just think it's a DNA trait. It's a culture trait. But I think competition and losing and adversity need to be championed 0 to 12 when they've been completely taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I believe the entitlement and the pain is a direct correlation. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do.
What I got out of that was that it helped me become my own man because 100%. I didn't have my dad passing me the ball. I didn't have my dad passing it on. And so for me, it gave me no framework to have to force myself
I took that to the
into.
extreme. By the time I was 18 or 19, this is really, I think my dad's about to start consuming my content, so I'm going to tread lightly here. But Dad, if you're listening, at 18 or 19, I became equally as important to the business. And by 22, I was much more important in the business. And so, like, I took it to the extreme, right? Like, the responsibility, the putting it on your own 2 feet, like, we need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
No parent is doing their kid a favor by putting training wheels on their life. I'm so grateful that I don't give a crap what anybody thinks of me while equally caring. It's incredibly important to me what Indy or D-Rock or Stefan think of me. It's incredibly important. It's stunning though how anti-establishment or how much I would push back when they would try to impose their will on me. And that's a very important differentiation. Actually, that's one of the first times I've ever kind of articulated this way, and I like this. There's a very big difference between what one thinks of you and what one tries to do by imposing their way on you. I'm very open, empathetic, and quite self-aware of what everybody thinks of me and pander to it, react to it, and adjust to it. But for somebody to try to impose their way on me without knowing me is just super not interesting. And so, I was able to navigate through junior high and high school and really not struggle with peer pressure. I just very honestly thought I was better than everybody. I didn't act that way. If you go find all the kids that went to high school with me, I don't think any of them say that I walked around with like I was cooler than them. You know, that would have been very hard as a 4'11" freshman that was being made fun of for not being 5 foot. It's how I thought inside, and I think if there's a lot of intestinal fortitude, to use a Gorilla Monsoon term, that's when wrestlers would get beat up, but then they would fight, like the Hulkster and Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. That was the whole kind of like genre of the 80s, get beat the crap out of it, and then all of a sudden. And so that's kind of how I am. Like I can take a lot, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, fight back. And so, you know, there's nothing I can say other than, when you're 15 now, when you're 51 or when you're 91, you're gonna be stunned how little you care, how little it mattered. And this includes your parents and your siblings and even your children. This is an intense thing. This is a very intense thing. But if I could wish anything besides health on people, there's a lot. I say this saying a lot. There's a lot of traits I like, self-awareness, everything. But man, there's unbelievable happiness that comes along with self-belief and recognizing how this plays out. And let me tell you how it plays out. Prince, as he was taking his last breath, and it's a big shout out to Prince, I'm a huge fan. I don't think Prince cared what Billboard magazine said or what anybody said. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is. And so if through this plea on this show on 201 on a Monday in late spring, if I could get 4 of you to understand, it's just not gonna matter when people, I mean, I love when people, I don't even know what else to tell you. I'm gonna say it very clear. Let Stefan get very focused here because I wanna really deliver this with all the drama that it deserves. And I like when people put me down. I get off on when people put me down. Nothing is more interesting to me than to prove all of you wrong. I love the people that think I'm a huckster or I've got some hidden agenda or I'm not that good or I won't be that great or I think too big of myself or my dad had a liquor store and that's the only reason I'm successful or I got lucky or show me, like please continue to judge me and underestimate me because it's the only driver I have and that's how I'm wired. And I don't expect all of you to be wired that way, but if I can, through my energy, move any of you, and trust me, I'm reading your comments because your comments are my oxygen, and I see so many of you, so many comments over the last 3 or 4 months of people saying, I've got a little more cockiness or confidence than I used to. As a matter of fact, I see it in you guys. I truly see my inner circle have more confidence when they're like, it just rubs off. I want to remind people, you're in control.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important and appropriate, and I appreciate, especially being very cordial for people to ask and things of that nature, but I want to remind people they're in control.
Yeah.
I want to provide value and put out things in my professional career. I'm incredibly private and feel that the world is entitled to what you give it. So when I watch people get upset when people get into their business, I'm like, you're giving them your business. By the way, you're leveraging your business. I don't want to leverage nor give my personal life to the world. I don't think that's the right way, by the way. I just think it's my way. So the reason I have a little bit to what you're referring to is it became not sustainable because it's been a long time and like I was in a transit, like it was the appropriate time. And I needed to just get some context out there, but it's not where I'm gonna go.
And that's what I was more interested by. To me, it's not.
Listen, us being together, my brain goes into maximize the value at the highest levels because we have the opportunity to for as many people are listening. The takeaway there from my perspective is you're in control. You have a learning disability and you want to share it, mazel tov. You don't, great. It took me back to something less serious. It took me 15 years of public life to say I'm not candorous. And it's hurt me in my personal life and it's hurt me in my business life. You get to share what you want to share. And I think people should be careful of what they share. You share your abs as you're a good shaped dude, people are gonna talk about your body for the rest of your life. But you did that. You're gonna show your kid all the time, they're gonna talk about that. Relationship, they're gonna talk. You're giving the world permission. I prefer not to give the world permission because that's a sacred place for me. You know, even look at my mom. Like, the greatest gift I could give to the world is my mom to the world. The greatest. She's alpha me. She's more experienced. She's a different perspective. As a mom, she doesn't want it. The end, right? I thought my dad and mom would be reverse. My dad, I never thought would love the limelight so much. But, you know, so I think if you're listening right now, please, if you're not going on social media because you have a skeleton in your closet, you have a disease, you have a bad, you know, situation, you're like me, and like grew up in a family where like personal life is private. That's, I think, you know, in Russia, that was like, people would go to jail if anybody knew anything about you. So I think it ingrained in my parents, which then ingrained in me and my sister and brother. Like, we're private that way. You know, I think you have to understand you're in control. Facebook and TikTok and podcasts and YouTube don't make you do anything.
Yeah.
They don't make you do anything.
I'm so glad you addressed that, because I think and this is why I brought it up, I think there's been a mask of false vulnerability that's been encouraged because of social media. So people think that the more vulnerable or more open you are, that shows authenticity.
Yeah, I totally disagree. I love you for that.
Right?
You're going to a very smart place.
Yeah.
I would argue I see more lack of authenticity in the way that people are leveraging their family and personal life because they know it does well.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too deep because, again, this is what's fun about being candorous in general, but I would never, ever say this to a human being. There's people who are leveraging their children for brand deals. That's something worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Like right now, those kids aren't talking about that to you because they don't talk because they're 4 or because they're 16 and not ready to have that combo. But like, I think all of us have to think about things like that. I came in as a 15-year-old who's already doing $3,000 a weekend selling baseball cards. And I walked in, and after the first day on the job, driving home, we lived 45 minutes from the liquor store. I spent the entire 45 minutes telling my dad he was doing everything wrong. Unfortunately, my dad's a Soviet father, and he didn't take too well to that. But
you can never tell those immigrant dads.
Well, you know what? I respect it. He came to this country with nothing, and he built something real, and I respect the shit out of it. But how many people here own family businesses? Right, so I'll say there's some good amount, and I know there's more to watch the recording. For the youngsters, the number 2s, the second gen, too many, because of my story and over the last year, getting some popularity, I get a lot of those emails, and kids are always like, my mom's not putting me on, my dad's not letting me do my thing. And I'm like, you're entitled. You're 22, you're walking into a business that's been alive for 15 years, your mom and dad have all these other employees that put the bricks down to fucking make this place, and just because you won the fucking sperm game, you think you earned something? Shut the fuck up and work for a decade.
Love it.
Fucking crazy. My dad doesn't listen. My dad didn't listen to a single thing I was thinking. I did shit, and when he was like, that wine isn't selling, and I sold all 19 cases on that Saturday as a 15-year-old who looked 8, who definitely shouldn't be selling wine. Miraculously, my dad started to listen. The number one thing I ask kids is like, when they're like, my dad won't listen. I'm like, well, what have you done? Well, he won't let me do anything. I'm like, you are copping the fuck out. You could do a million things. Businesses are too complicated. There's too much going on. People are just entitled, period. That's the only thing I have to say.
Man, I couldn't agree more. It was the same thing. I resonate with the story. My dad came over here with nothing, didn't even know the language.
Same.
Had to figure it out in college.
Same.
Didn't know how to read a textbook.
I get it. My dad's first words were Budweiser and Carlo Rossi. Really. And then it's tough, right? Because then I came into the business and I really transformed it. And honestly, it caused a lot of friction because I became the man. My dad was young. You know, at the time I was 22, my dad was 44 when I took over full operations. You know, when you're 22, you think 44 is old. I'm 46 now, I feel like a child. So my dad, to have the humility to give me free reign, I know I was ringing the register, but like, you know, family businesses are challenging. I have a lot of empathy for all the people in here, you know? I would just say, if I can give one piece of advice, then I started a business with my brother, Vayner. The one thing I would say as somebody who's navigated 2 successful businesses with family, like if you're in it, I promise you, you don't want to be a family that broke up because of money. Money's poison. Like fight for the love every day. Like the money will be there. If you're so fucking great, you'll get your money, right? I was 34 when I left my dad's business. I made no money in those 12 years. I worked 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. I built the business. I left with nothing. And in 12 short years, I've accomplished plenty. If you're so fucking great, you'll get yours. The thing that connects this story to make it relevant for everyone is perspective. If you really ask me to like synthesize what I'm trying to accomplish here in one word, it's perspective. Can I get you to see that LinkedIn content can actually triple your business? Can I get you to see that your employees or your family, not a disposable asset that you can replace? Can I get you to see?
Incredible. So we're family business, you took it over. Now, you already talked a little bit about, you just gotta delegate. You gotta delegate. So did you come in day one, like you're now absorbing the business?
Well, don't forget, I was 14 when I was working every weekend and every summer vacation. So by the time I was 22, I was like OG. And don't forget, before I was 14, from 6 to 14, I was getting straight D's and F's, but fucking dominating in lemonade and baseball cards. And so I struggle with using me because I've come to realize, back to making the Lucky Sperm Club, I'm a natural business talent. It was the luck of the draw. Mom and dad had sex at the right second in Russia, and I popped out. So for me, it was the hours and the talent that put me in this crazy position. But as far as delegating, yes, from day one, I understood if I was gonna build an empire, back to everyone here who just raised their hands, if you're gonna build something big, it's not you doing everything, it's you hiring people to do things, and you're in charge of the following framework. Hire fast. Too many people spend too much time hiring because they think there's a perfect candidate. Hire fast. If they prove to you in the first 3, 6, or 12 months they stink, fire faster. If they prove to you in the first 3, 6, or 12 months they got it, promote fastest. That last part, thank you, that last part. And listen, I grew up in a small business. I used to fight my dad to give a kid that had it a 50-cent raise as if we were fighting the Ukraine-Russia war. 50 cents an hour. He was, that's that old school thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm telling you, hire faster than you've been hiring. You don't know anyway. I think my greatest superpower is emotional intelligence and intuition, and I've hired so many losers. I can name 40,000. I mean, it's unbelievable how many times I've been wrong. More than anything I do in my life. More than anything I do in my life, I've been wrong in hiring. It's just a hard game. But the reason I've built massive companies is because I have fired faster in my older age because I really struggled with it in my youth. And now I'm promoting fastest for the last decade, and it's been game changing. Winners like to be seen. And you trying to hold it off because you don't want them to think they're too big of a winner, and you don't want it, like small businesses, listen, I get it, every dollar counts. So you're like, I can wait a year before I promote, and the money. If you got a winner, lock it in.
And when you have that good team, man, they will pay you back in spades.
And especially, I'll tell you another thing, because I worry about retention based on a lot of things I'm talking about, giving that raise and accolades to somebody 100 days in, it buys you an extra year together, even if they're not destined to be with you forever, because they really subconsciously appreciate it. And that
awesome.
extra year is gonna matter to your business. You compound that by 4 or 5 people, and you got money.
I found when I finally got out of my way and stopped doing it, that's when we grew the fastest. I had to keep working myself out of a job.
Let me give you a really good one for everyone. And this is gonna really land with this audience. Let me teach you the power of good intent and I'm sorry. The reason so many people micromanage and don't delegate is they're concerned that it's gonna get messed up and they don't wanna deal with the client's issues. The power of good intent, you didn't intend for it to go poorly. You've put the best people in place that you can to the best of your ability. The power of I'm sorry and I'm gonna take care of it. The power of accountability when something goes wrong is actually what you wanna be doing, not trying to fix it before it happened.
What are you spending your time on? So obviously, people.
So I got here. I'm sitting on this stage right this second because people are the only asset in business. So all my juggernaut, billionaire, fancy friends always get mad at me when I start talking about feelings in business. Empathy, compassion, you know, and again, you heard it from me in this talk. I'm also not 8th place trophy guy. I'm just kind of, you know, using the political structure of America in a world where everyone's falling in love with being all red or all blue. I'm purple as fuck. And so I believe in kindness. I believe that nice guys finish first. I believe in patience. I believe in empathy. I believe in good people skills. It matters. But I also believe in tenacity and work ethic. Like my friends that are too far to the left, like you're not gonna build a big business working 9 hours a week. One thing that I think is so fascinating is I wonder if I can get others to see themselves the way I do, which is just like kind of like an empty pipe. I'm just an empty pipe. It's like, you give me accolades, my mom. You shit on me, you just don't know me. It's all empty. It's just like, there's something about when you don't overvalue yourself, when you don't have ego, and it's confidence and humility. Like if you think of that as a triangle, I think of ego, confidence, and humility as a triangle. And like the game is like, if you can just focus just on, hey, you have self-esteem, like I'm a good person, I'm doing the best I can. Doing the best I can. And humility, like if it's going well, being like, yeah, okay, there's 8 billion people on earth. I'm sure there's billions that are doing it better than me, you know, better looking than me, nicer than me, smarter than me. If you can play on that, you win. If you go to ego, which is just insecurity, it's all over. You think you're so then you make pretend that you're good. And you everyone out. You think you're so it's lack of self-confidence. So then you spend all your time shitting on everybody else and fake pretending that you're good. Posturing. All to protect that you're weak. People walking around here thinking they're somebody because they got 230,000 followers on TikTok. So? Humble the up. It will get better. But a lot of you say no to because your humility's not in check. I still say yes that a lot of you pass on because I out humble you.
All right.
That was some like, you know, I just hope everybody knows. No, I just really, this is important. I want everybody to know, that's not me razzing, that's me loving you. I see a lot of people saying no to as if they're somebody. You wanna really win? Decide you're nobody. Everything gets real interesting real fast after that. How many people know in their soul that the concept of feedback is often a disguise for people to be political or even occasionally nasty? To me, the problem with feedback and the problem with, you know, candor has always been that it actually creates a framework for the worst of human behavior, right? And so one of the reasons I stood up this concept of kind candor, I've been blown away by just the word kind in front of candor as a principle at VaynerMedia and VaynerX, how much that's reverberated to a couple of very interesting things. You may think it's most impacted people being nicer when they give feedback. As a matter of fact, in our company, it's allowed more people to give feedback. Many, many people struggled with telling their friend or acquaintance or someone they liked working with proper feedback when it was just feedback, but as soon as it was kind candor, they could say, Andrew, I love you, you're a wonderful person, hey, on the, you know, the way you videotape, like those are real things. And so I think that putting an adjective that speaks to a positive human element in front of something like candor or feedback or reviews actually changes the dynamic aggressively and almost brings, if I use a political analogy, it almost brings the blue and the red more towards a purple. And so you have the people who are too kind and can't give feedback. Kind candor, pleasant feedback all of a sudden allows them to do it. And you also confine and really put on notice the people that use candor or radical candor or feedback as, hey, this is not your chance to suppress this person because you're scared they're gonna take your job. This is not your chance to be a little nasty because you don't like their political views, or and so I actually think that is a very big deal.
And what about the one who receive? What do you believe that should be? Do you think it's the same emotional ingredients that we should practice ourselves? Because
of course. If look at what we've talked about today. If you're on the receiving end of feedback and you start with humility, you can handle anything. I'll give you an example. I have an ungodly amount of followers in social media. I post as much as anyone on earth. I post on every platform, LinkedIn to TikTok. On LinkedIn, the reply might be, because I have radical marketing views for corporate America, but I think they're absolutely right and corporate America is radically confused. But I may post something and you may get a very traditional marketing professor or a very traditional marketer belittle me in the comments on LinkedIn. An hour later, I may post on TikTok and do something cool, but I might have a 15-year-old say, get off of TikTok, old man, right? And so if I did not have humility in understanding, yeah, I understand a lot of things have gone well for me, but who really cares? And at the end of the day, far more special people than me have passed away. We give them roses for 24 hours and everybody besides their family moves on with their life, right? I mean, we're a couple hours away from people for not thinking twice about Queen Elizabeth. She was the queen for 70 years, 70. And I'm telling you, I know this world. It's what I do for a living. 24 hours and it's gonna go into the backdrop, right? So who am I? And so I think when you're getting feedback from your boss saying, hey, you don't have enough tenacity, or hey, you need to be more thoughtful of your marketing, or hey, you're not strong at supply chain, or hey, don't get mad at them. Deploy humility and say, is there any truth in this? I have been uncomfortably professionally successful for 25 years. A 15-year-old kid will leave a comment and say I'm wrong about something, and I think about it for a half a second to make sure that I never get too high on my own supply, my own success. That humility allows me also to deal with accolades. This is a very important nuance of humility. Humility is helping me when everyone tries to shit on me, but humility actually helps me even more with my popularity now. When I post something, I get 100 people that leave a goat emoji, greatest of all time. I actually argue that humility is helping me more with that, because if I actually believed that, I would become audacious, complacent, potentially unbearable to be around, and those are far more disgusting traits that I'm not interested in. I think humility needs its day. You know, it's funny, I started a wine brand years ago called Empathy Wines. It's right there. I started it many years ago, 5 years ago or so. And at the time, the word was not necessarily, if you look at the Google trends, it was out there, but it wasn't really popular. Obviously, there was a lot of tension, racial, political tension in the US, and the word started to populate. And a lot of my friends were like, how did you know? And I said, because I do market research. I read my comments, I read my DMs. I think much like empathy 5 years ago, I have a real belief that over the next decade, humility will become one of the most important conversations amongst parents and teachers and people that genuinely care about humanity. I believe it is one of the secret ingredients to far more success. I think when you lack it, you're exposing insecurity. I think insecurity leads to great unhappiness. The number one thing that I'm completely convinced would work for everyone, the only thing that I'm convinced would work for everyone, it's hard, back to everything we've been talking about, because it doesn't come natural to most people, but it is, the ritual is practicing gratitude every morning. So I don't meditate or pray per se, but there's not a morning that I wake up in the world where when I wake up, including the overnight flight, where I don't look at my phone immediately. You know, a lot of people like to wait to look at their phone, which I love. You know, remember when I said and, not or? One of the biggest reasons the world has conflict is people keep telling people what they should do, right? Like, I'm very happy that meditation works for you. It may not work for someone else. You can recommend, all I'm doing up here and saying, hey, think about this. But I don't judge anybody when they don't do what I do or what I hope they do. I want it for them. But for me, every morning I grab my phone right away, and if nothing horrible happened, and let this be very clear, nobody died of the 10 people I love the most. If nothing horrible happened, I am actually incapable of being upset during the day. I could be frustrated, I could be perplexed, I could be for a second upset, but I just don't know how to be upset about anything other than someone you love dying. I just don't think you should. Let me tell you why. I have something very interesting to tell you. When you die, you'll be dead for a very long time.
Are you sure?
Listen, if this whole thing about souls go into, like, I would love to come back as a little Danish girl. But yes, when you die, you will be dead for a long time. Also, I don't know if you know this, you were not born for a very long time. We have, like, even though life is long, and hopefully everybody here lives to at least 100, it's also, if you take a step up, very short. The concept of not squeezing the shit out of it, from a happiness standpoint, from a trying standpoint, from an ambitious standpoint, is ludicrous to me. And so I keep it super simple. Nobody died, best day ever. I mean it. I mean it. To the negative people in my life, there's been some of my friends and family that are negative, that there's 2 times in my life where I actually said this. I got so frustrated to a family member, so frustrated, so upset. I literally told them, because they were fucking so upset about the dumbest shit in the world, I literally told them that I wished something atrocious happened to them the next day. Just for perspective. We just lack perspective. Like, we complain about ludicrous things. And so, gratitude. A lot of people know I'm obsessed with context. I'm obsessed with context. It's why I'm a very good marketer. Making videos on TikTok is different than making videos on LinkedIn. The way I talk to a 22-year-old in Germany is different than the way I'm gonna talk to a 45-year-old in Afghanistan. Context is everything to me. I'm religious about context, which is why I think I'm one of the most successful content producers in the world. It's why I think VaynerMedia is one of the most successful content producers in advertising. When people are like, Gary, I've noticed a big change in you, I remind them that my message is pretty consistent. It's just contextual. If you read Crush It, my first book, what put me on the map, I talk about making $48,000 a year and loving life. That if you are ecstatic with your life and you're making $48,000 a year, you can stop reading this book, because this book is for people that are unhappy and are looking for ways to get out of the job that's making them unhappy. This YouTube and Twitter thing and Facebook thing is gonna be big. Unlike our grandparents, you can do this after hours while you're at home with your kids. This is a big opportunity. Most people saw the young rah, 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 rah. I wrote that book during an economic crisis. For example, if we go into a real, deep global recession, my content's gonna change dramatically, because what's gonna be needed in that moment is to remind everybody that hard work is part of the equation.
Gary, are you a spiritual person?
Am I a spiritual person? I just said I believed in fucking ghosts. I would tell you that I'm a extremely spiritual person because I'm completely confused by our lack of knowledge around intuition. Just that subject matter has me off the reservation. You know, I'm also spiritual in the way that I don't like to judge people's spirituality. Meaning, I, for example, do not have crystals in my house. But I love that people have crystals in their house because it works for them. I was born in the Soviet Union, where religion was banned for 70 years. So for 3 generations of my family, religion was not practiced. So I am not deeply religious, yet I love that religion is so important for so many. My ultimate spirituality is grounded in my deep, deep love of my fellow man and woman. And that's what I like it for.
How would you define spirituality? What does it mean for you?
For me, spirituality is almost like a sixth sense, like a framework of perspective that is grounded in an energy that is less tangible. You know, back to gray. I wore gray today, if you noticed. I view spirituality as the deepest gray. I think so many people's struggles here in this room are when they're trying to be too black and white. They're unhappy about something, and so they find somebody new on Instagram and they follow his or her formula and they follow it to a T for 4 months and it doesn't work, and they're upset. And they think it's their fault. The only fault, if there is even one, is thinking that there is something that is black and white that will fix everything. It's just not how life is. My goal in life, my North Star in real life, is 2 things. Selfishly, I want to buy the New York Jets. But I want to buy the New York Jets because when I do, I want to put in front of the stadium, because I still have it, the sweater that my mom knitted for me. And I want it to say, from not being able to afford a jersey to buying the entire fucking team. That's what I want to do selfishly. More importantly, what I want to accomplish, what my North Star is selflessly, is there's so many people that want to be successful in life. I think success is inner peace. I really do. However, I am also a purebred 100% entrepreneur. I love, if you saw, I mean, I'm looking at Andrew, Dustin was with me. If you saw what Dustin saw, that on Thursday, it was announced that VeeFriends, my intellectual property, raised $50 million from Andreessen Horowitz, the most important venture capitalist in the world, to build this thing. That is a very big business accomplishment. What was I doing while that announcement was hitting the world? I was standing behind a table selling pieces of cardboard for $10 a piece and haggling with people who said, I'll give you 8, and I said, but I need 9. I love the process of being an entrepreneur. I love being an entrepreneur. I love the game of making money. I don't need the money to fill my insecurities. My mom took care of that. I need it because I'm keeping score and it's fun and it's a game. But I know hundreds of millions of people will look up to me in the course of my life. I know this to be true. What my North Star is to teach the world that you can be an alpha, a fucking killer in business, win. And you can do it by being an extremely nice person. I don't believe in my hype, which is what allows me to not believe in the hate thrown towards me, which is the natural thing that happens when you get popularity and success as well. So it was actually very easy for me, Harry. Like, it was funny, I was with my college friends who I haven't been able to spend a lot of time with since I left because I've been working every minute and everyone's around the country, and they were at VCon. And it was just so awesome. Like, they were so pumped. And all of them, these are like 46 to 48-year-old men, every one of them. And these are thuggy, like my friends from college are from the hood, for lack of a better word. They were all, one by one, were really nice and emotional with me, like teary moments, one by one. There was about 5 of them there. Different times, one called after the event, 2 during there, 1 at night, one in the breakfast. They just like, it's really cool that you are literally, actually, exactly the same. And for me, it was like very flattering, but like very easy. And I'll tell you why. This is all DNA. All that money and fame do, Harry, is exposes who you actually are. It just accelerates your truth. You know, to me,
what if
just
you don't,
because
what if you don't like who you actually are?
Well, if you don't like who you, yeah.
Like,
if you don't, yeah. If you don't like who, yeah, I mean, that's, what do you think, I mean, think about my content. My content is far more therapy than it is business, HBS. Like, this is all about self-esteem. Harry, this is all about self-esteem. And one of the reasons I tell everybody things, I try both things. I'm like, you have, like, don't, like, I try to get people to self-love themselves for like just asking them what's the alternative, or I love saying things, remember, if you think you suck, somebody put that in your head. Like, you didn't come out of the womb and be like, I suck. You think you suck because your mom told you you suck. You think you suck because your dad told you you suck. Like, that's, and then I try to get people to like reconcile that. And then I try to remind them that everybody else sucks too, so why are you beating yourself up? Self-love is, I'm almost using business as a disguise to try to help people be happier.
what would you advise me? I get a ton of DMs, comments, I hate you, you're a prick, you don't deserve it, you're young, you're rich, whatever. And it's like horrible messages, some death threats even in the past. Like, and it really upsets me. Like, I cry, I will be very sad. What would you advise me to not feel like?
Well, there's a couple things. First, I would ask you is, how much, if any, of it resonates with you as truth?
Not at all. They don't know me. It's random people.
Then you're really in a good place. Like, for me, one of the things I've liked about pushback, hate, negativity is I start with humility. Is there anything here? Can I take 2% out of, Gary, you're a fucking asshole. It's very hard to take something out of that. But sometimes I will probably be like, I'm really sorry that I trigger this. And you can talk about, well, you think you know everything. I'm like, no. I'm passionate and have conviction, which yes, can come across in video and audio that way, but rest assured, I don't know shit about 99% of shit in the world. I'm just staying in my very narrow lane of like sports and wine and market. Like, this is tiny. I don't know anything about a million things. That's why I don't talk about brain surgery. That's why I don't talk about meditation. That's why I don't talk about a million things. So there's that. So first I start with humility, then I start with compassion. Harry, if somebody actually, I know you've heard this in my content because I talk about it all the time. I do think having some compassion for those people, bro, it sucks to live a life where you actually want to tear someone else down. It means you're really unhappy. And you should just be happy that your life isn't about sitting around, finding someone on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram and sending them a nasty DM. I really go with empathy and like accountability. I'm like, is there anything right? Are they right? Am I getting too high on my own supply? B, man, I really feel bad that this is what they want to spend their time on. C, deep breath, reset. Like, there's 99% of the people, 86% of the people that are thrilled and it's going well. Let me focus on consuming positivity. Because I don't judge within short time frames.
Expand, what do you mean?
This is you're gonna like this one. The reason I don't struggle by losing my edge or being a killer by allocating time to personal endeavors, time with family or escapism, is because I don't judge my success or giving up an inch in the time frame of a week, a month, or a year. I am incredibly ambitious, but the frame of timing that I put my hopes and wants and dreams of my accomplishments is for the length of my life, not this month. So if the next 4 days I don't want to do anything, it's just 4 days in a 99-year life.
Can I ask, is that the result though of many years of success and finances being built up? Were you the same?
No, it's the reverse. Listen back to the interview. How the hell do you think I ever did the thing I did in the first place for my parents? I gave up my 20s for them. Because at 22, I was like, I'm gonna do this for 8 years. I used to think about 30 a lot. I'm gonna do this for 8 years, just give it to my folks, not give a fuck. Fuck it, I'll figure it out after because I've got 30 to 99.
Did you find it hard having to grow up so much faster than everyone else at 20?
I didn't know the difference. I didn't know that I was growing up faster. I didn't realize that my dad was gone all the time and thus I was the oldest son from the old country and I was the father figure to my sister and brother. I didn't realize that I was 14 and working 14 hours a day and that's probably not normal. We were such immigrants in our cocoon, I just didn't even know. And I also grew up in blue collar, like I didn't grow up, like all my friends worked at A&P making $6 an hour. I didn't grow up in affluence. So me working a lot, it wasn't like my friends were going to sleepaway camp or like Ibiza or the Hamptons. Everybody else was kind of doing, either sitting at home and being a good student or working at fucking McDonald's, you know what I mean? So I wasn't in an environment where I felt like it was, I was the most extreme of everybody, but I also loved it. I loved being a business person.
That realization causes you to make a decision. You've said before that changing your mind is a strength. How do you know when to give up on something versus when to persist and fucking nail it?
Love that question. I like giving up on something when I no longer like it, regardless of the financial outcome.
Huh.
I try to capitalize against being content, satisfied, and happy, not maximizing the financial aspect of the situation at hand.
Does everything have a price?
And that, I'll answer that one in a minute. And that is the reverse of what people think. To your question earlier, most people think this mindset and who I am comes because I have money. Back to my college friends, I have money because I had the mindset when I had no money. It's the reverse. I knew that I was happy at 25, making $48,000 a year, buying nothing, so I could be happy forever. So who gives a fuck? Because making $1 million wasn't gonna be my happiness radar. And yes, everything has a price. Everything does have a price because the reality is, well, it's funny game. Like, it's funny as I'm answering how I'm thinking about this. I'll give you an example. I'm answering yes, everything has a price, because in reality, I believe that. But I just thought of something. If somebody came to me and said, I will give you $100 billion in cash, but you can never work again. You must fully retire, meaning the cliche thing, must go on a beach in a very nice place and actually do nothing besides drink beers, walk on the beach, look at the sunset, fish. We'll give you fishing, which I like, kind of fun here and there, right? I would not take that. I would not take that. That would break my soul. I would die. You know how sometimes people lose, this is gonna land for you and Andrew's in the background here. You know when you see like an 88-year-old person lose their spouse and they die like a week later? And you're like, Grandpa died of a broken heart. He couldn't live without Grandma, but he was perfectly fine a week before. There's a part of me that actually believes that I have that with work. I've said this often, and it means you've heard it because you consumed a lot. It is my great hobby. Whatever anybody loves the most, everybody listening, whatever you love the most, skiing, sailing, fishing, basketball, traveling, frisbee, beer making, watching movies, whatever it is, like everyone listening and watching, stop, tell me the number one thing you like more than anything in the world. For me, that is being an entrepreneur. The world speaks about so much negativity that I feel a requirement to talk about positivity, because what one consumes is who they become. And I'm very proud of my practical, optimistic framework. I'm optimistic, but I'm not delusional, and I'm not creating foofy 8th place trophies. It's like, hey, this is real shit, but we can do this nicely. And I beat that drum very aggressively. One of the things as creators we think about is, how do we sustain for a long period of time, because people may get bored. There's many different ways to talk about this. First of all, I once took a 2.5-year gap of producing any content. 2.5 years. So for 5 years I did wine content from 2006 to 2011, and then in 2014 I started the Ask Garyvee show. That's a long gap. So I think a lot of times we beat each other up. You beat yourself up for not producing content. I'm potentially one of the most prolific content creators of the last decade, and I once took almost 3 years where I made almost no content. So I hope that gives everyone a sense of relief that if you have a bad week or even a bad month, it doesn't mean the end of your content career. That's number one. Number two, notice what I came back and did. After 5 years of doing wine content and not doing content for 3 years, the content pillar that I decided to do was a Q&A format. Why did I do that? Because I needed the audience to be a contributor to the content creation. I think one of the great mistakes that a lot of people make is they don't incorporate their audience as a potential starter to creative. It is an amazing training wheels, setup, chess move, putting you halfway home, incorporating your audience to being a starting point to more content is something more people need to do. Q&As, answering questions, interactions. And then finally, I'm a very big believer in what I do with D-Rock. Like, filming your day-to-day is an incredible way to scale content. The other thing I did was I did a ton of podcasts and shows that had very small audiences just to be on the receiving end of questions so that I would have content. So literally DMing small podcasts and saying, hey, if you'd like to interview me, and as you're evolving through your careers, that's a good get for a small podcast, so it's good for them, but it's also good for you because you can post-produce the creative. And what's amazing about Q&A is the questions take you to places you won't take yourself. So those are some things to think about. I view that content is the oxygen that creates awareness around what you're doing. So to your point, if you stop creating to do something, you in essence are turning off the oxygen of what you're doing. So the reason I have continuously content created, even though I've gotten remarkably busier in my time, is because I agree with that. I think once you stop creating, you become less vulnerable. Oprah Winfrey's businesses are not as impactful today as they were a decade ago because she doesn't have her show. That's just real life. We, me included, must really understand the art part of underpriced attention for our businesses. This is all fancy jargon for one simple thing. The single thing that can change the majority of businesses in this room is an obnoxious, and I mean obnoxious, commitment to organic social media creative as an opportunity to take advantage of the TikTokification of social media that will be the next half decade. In the next half decade, the TikTokification of all social networks is the biggest opportunity for everybody in this room. What is happening and will continue to happen is these platforms are going to reward the creative, not your ability to build a following. This is exciting for everybody in the room if you heard me loud and clear, because many people here have not made the commitment to amassing community as a personal brand or even for their brand. When I tell you that you could have never made a piece of content in your life and tomorrow for your business, your product or you, however you want to play it, both preferably, that you can post your first post on a YouTube Shorts or a TikTok, and if you know what you're doing, a lot of good things can happen for your business, is exciting. The problem is it's daunting for a lot of people. A lot of people in this room like math. It's predictable, it's black and white. They hate art. It's gray as shit and you have no idea what the fuck is going on. The problem is the math will continue to get commoditized and will be leveraged against you, and the art is your moat. Branding, instead of math-based digital sales, and marketing and content and creativity are a battleground that this room must take much more seriously than it has in the last decade, because it will be the protection to allow you to have the margins you'll need to sustain your business, because what's actively happening is the math is being run to take all your margin. Let me say it nice and slow. The math is being run to take your margin when you don't sell product within your own self. When you sell somewhere else, the data is being collected. This is good. They deserve it. You brought no customers to the table. They brought all of them. I just need you to know the opportunity in front of you. What does this mean? It means a couple of things. One, this TikTokification of all social is a huge opportunity for many reasons. One, back to how many of you try many different products, I would argue virality in social, based on these algos, is the greatest insight to what your next product should be. The concept of guessing your next product is crazy in a world where you can literally create samples at scale, create content against it, and get incredible qualitative feedback if it's interesting. Not the math, but the comments and the insights at scale from free distribution because of organic virality, because that's where social's going. This is a profound shift in social at a time when social is hitting scale of complete and utter consumption patterns besides streaming services. Besides gaming and streaming services, the attention of society is living within these 10 platforms. This is I really hope the tone tenor that I'm bringing to it, which is a little more serious than my style normally, is landing for some of you, because the stakes are so high because it's pure offense. Again, in simplest terms, I genuinely believe that every single business in this room needs to go home and substantially, and I'm talking 2, 4, 30x their creative output per day. What we're talking about is something everyone should fully understand, which is social media is where brand is built. Social media is driving an extraordinary amount of sales. It's also changing in a way that it hasn't for 15 years. The reason I'm personally so excited about it is in 2006, my life changed because I took all of my savings, all of them, and I invested in 3 companies: Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Obviously, I'm rich now. But the moral of the story is not that. The moral is when I invested in Tumblr, I called my brother AJ and I said, Tumblr is going to be the biggest one of these 3. Thank God I wasn't making videos back then. Tumblr did sell for $1 billion to Yahoo. But let me tell you why I thought Tumblr was going to be the biggest in 2007. Even back then, there was something in my spidey senses that understood the social media social graph was following each other. And because it started young and I watched my brother go through it because he was the first class in college, and by the time we even started VaynerMedia, half the people he was following, he wasn't friends with, they had different interests already. I understood there was vulnerability in it just being about who you followed. But Tumblr, I'm 46, so for the 30-year-olds, 32-year-olds in here, 35-year-olds in here that remember Tumblr's rise when they were in junior high, Tumblr was based on what you were interested in. And I saw stickiness there that I really was dumbfounded by. That has now been manifested. If you look back and you Google my name with the word Musical.ly, you'll see 4 or 5 years ago me screaming at the top of my lungs that you need to get on Musical.ly when it was, I mean, I thought I was gonna go to fucking jail because there was only 13-year-old girls on there dancing. I remember my team's like, you sure you want to post this? I'm like, fuck it. But I knew what I was looking at with Musical.ly really mattered to everybody in this room and was going to at some point. Obviously TikTok bought it. It is now what is TikTok.